audience about two of her efforts this year in particular. First, your thoughts on her thrilling nose victory over Alexander Goldrun in the Nassau Stakes.
Well, that was one of the most exciting races of the year, and a repetition, really, of the great match between Fantastic Light and Galileo in the Irish Champion Stakes a few years ago. Ouija Board was doing what you expect her to do in a race like that against a really fine mare like Alexander Goldrun. She met the challenge, was briefly headed, dug back in, and won the race. This was just maintaining the form that she had shown when she had beaten Electrocutionist and David Jr. in the Prince of Wales Stakes at Royal Ascot a couple of months earlier. She's absolutely first class. She wins every place she goes in the world, and she's not quite the defending champion in the filly and mare turf. She won it 2 years ago, was second last year. It's a 1 3/8 again this year, which, the way we run races in America, is probably to her advantage. The one thing you have to be careful of with Ouija Board is if the ground is soft or even good. She really would prefer good to firm or firm. Something solid underfooting. But if there's a bit of give in the ground, there is a question mark about her, and that would open the door to Satwa Queen. In fact, Satwa Queen has a good chance of winning even if the ground is firm.
And you mentioned Satwa Queen. She's coming off a very fine second in the Prix de la Opera, where she rallied down along the inside in the shadow roll. Talk about her, if you would, Alan.
Satwa Queen is coming into this race looking to win it. In the Prix de l'Opera, she was splitting Mandisha and Alexandrova, the two best 3-year-old fillies in Europe. And Alexandrova won 3 Group 1 races, all at a 1.5 miles. Mandisha won 3 Group 1 races, an extraordinarily talented filly. She won her 3 Group 1 races, first at a mile, second at a 1.5 miles, and then came back down to win at a 1.25 miles. Earlier, she had won a Group 3 at a 1.125 miles, been disqualified, and a listed race at a 1 7/16. She may be the best filly in the world. She may eventually be better than Ouija Board. But Satwa Queen was right there with her. And Satwa Queen, that was only Satwa Queen's second race since she had been in Dubai in the winter. So this is her third race off a layoff. Her first race was a Group 2 victory. She's very, very good, and she is my selection because she's 12-1 on the morning line, but she's only 6-1 with the British bookies. That's something you might want. If fans can get a look at what the British bookies are offering, they'll find where the value is on the foreign horses with our tote system.
Let's touch briefly upon a couple of other fillies. Germant's very good year in France, but came over here and ran 4th in the QE2 at Keeneland.
Germant is running against 3-year-olds, and the 3-year-old fillies in France this year are not very good. She was second in the French Oaks, but the French Oaks was a weak race this year. The winner, Confidential Lady, hasn't won since, and she was exposed when she came here to Keeneland, and I don't think she has a chance for the first 3.
And finally, Quiet Royal will start for Todd Pletcher for the first time on Saturday. She a rallying third in the QE2 at Keeneland. But Alan, in Europe, she seemed to be more of a sprinter/miler.
Well, they had high hopes for a Quiet Royal. She's very well bred, but she never really panned out. And towards the this summer, she didn't look like she was really quite up to it. She was running against colts in Group 1 races. This is a step up for her, though, back up to that competition against older fillies and mares, and a 1 3/8 might also be just a little bit too long for her.
Alan Shuback's analysis of the filly and mare turf. A very solid contingent of Europeans for the mile. Alan, let's begin with Ad Valorem, who won the Queen Anne earlier this year at Ascot.
Yeah, there are 7 foreign-trained horses in the mile, and 10 of the 14 are either foreign-trained or formally trained in Europe, which makes one wonder about the quality of our turf racing in the United States. style. Ad Valorem is an inconsistent horse trained by Aidan O'Brien. This is another one who they had high hopes for as a 3-year-old. Didn't quite live up to it, except at Royal Ascot when she won the Queen Anne Stakes and beat a number of really good horses. He's by Danzig. He does stay a mile, but he really needs firm ground. But even if he gets firm ground, he's so inconsistent. I really wonder about his chances. You might want to try him in the first 3. At Woodbine, in the Woodbine Mile, he was beaten by Becrux and Rebel, who are basically grade 3 types, and he just doesn't seem to have much going for him on Saturday.
His stablemate, Aussie Rules, used blinkers and Lasix to win the Shadwell Turf Mile, but he has had the misfortune of having drawn post 14.
Yeah, that's very difficult, especially in a race where you require a good trip no matter what post position you've drawn. Aussie Rules has won the French 2,000 guineas, and he won the Shadwell Turf Mile. But this year, both those races are not top-class Group or Grade 1 races, and Aussie Rules is really a Group 2 type. He's best judged on his form in the Eclipse Stakes, the Sussex Stakes, and the Prix de Moulin de Longchamp. Group 1 races in which he finished 4th each time. This race is a little tougher than those, and with the tough draw, I think he'd be doing very, very well to finish 4th again.
Let's talk about Godolphin. They've got a couple in here, including Librettist, who began this year with 5 consecutive victories, but a very poor 6th in the QE2. And Alan, didn't he come out of that race a bit lame?
Yeah, he came out of it a bit lame, and a few days later they said he was all right. But there are questions concerning Librettist. He didn't run at all in 2005, and then he started this year with 5 victories, moving straight up from allowance races into winning Group 1 competition, winning both of France's Group 1 miles, and that's no mean achievement. But in the last race, he didn't run to form. And Frankie Dettori, Godolphin's first-string rider, has chosen Echo of Light, and I think there's a world to tell in that decision. Echo of Light is by Dubai Millennium. He's one of the last Dubai Millenniums left, sadly. Dubai Millennium, the great winner of the Dubai World Cup, who died after covering only about 20 of his mares in his first book. Echo of Light had to be purchased by Sheikh Mohammed, even though he was Dubai Millennium's owner, at a sale. And when Sheikh Mohammed saw Echo of Light in the sales ring, he remarked, "That is the way a racehorse is supposed to look, and one must take his opinion into account." But Echo of Light is a bit of a nut job. He was hard to train. At one point at Windsor this past summer, he actually left the course with the race in his hands. He had a 5-length lead, and the configuration of the course means that there's a gap in the outer rail towards the finish, and he ran through it and was disqualified, of course. He's calmed down a bit since then. He's won a Group 3 and a Group 2 in his last 2 starts. He's got a world of talent. He's coming into the race the right way, but he just might be a little bit short of the best in here.
Rob Roy is an interesting horse as he cuts back off a 2nd in the 1.25 mile Champion Stakes.
Yeah, he's been a bit of an enigma. He's a Group 2 mile winner earlier this spring, but the idea of dropping back to an American mile run really fast as opposed to a British 1.25 mile run rather slow doesn't really appeal to me. I get the feeling they are running Rob Roy as a prep for the Hong Kong Cup, a 1.25 mile race run on December 10th, and as they go quite fast in Hong Kong like we do here, he may just be in here to be sharpened for speed for the Hong Kong Cup. If he can finish 4th or 5th and pick up a check, that's nice.
John Gosden has Sleeping Indian, who in his last start won the 7-furlong Challenge Stakes at Newmarket. Alan, can he get an American mile around 2 turns?
Oh, yeah. In fact, horses that get 7 furlongs in Europe should be able to get an American mile, and 2 turns has nothing to do with it. The myth of 2 turns really irritates me. 2 turns is good for horses who have short strides, bad for horses who have long strides. But a mile around 2 turns is exactly the same distance as a straight mile. Sleeping Indian can stay a mile. He's lightly raced this year. He's got 3 starts. He won 2 of them. The one he didn't win, he was blocked through the stretch, the Prix de la Forêt 2-back. Forget it, I was there. If he had gotten a clear run, he probably would have been the winner. He's only beaten 4 lengths anyway. Last time in the Challenge Stakes, he was a comfortable 1-length winner of that Group 2 7-furlong race. I think he is the sleeper in the field. He's drawn well. He's got Alex Solis to ride him. I think that's a big advantage over bringing, if they had brought Jimmy Fortune, who is unacquainted with American racing, he's his regular rider. Solis is a much better advantage, and I think that Sleeping Indian is going to be real value. If you don't like him to win, you certainly have to use him in the exotics. Owned by George Strawbridge, by the way, the American who has most of his good horses in Europe these days.
And finally, probably the most fancied of the Europeans, that's Arafat, the winner of the St. James Palace Stakes earlier this year, and a very fine second behind George Washington in the QE2.
Yeah, and he beat George Washington in the Irish 2,000 guineas on ground that was not favorable for George Washington. It was heavy. His victory in the St. James's Palace Stakes was very good, and it was accomplished on good to firm ground, which, well, you got to watch the weather. Is it going to be good to firm, or is it going to be soft at Churchill Downs on Saturday? But if it is good to firm, he stands a very good chance. He was even better in the Queen Elizabeth II Stakes than he was in winning the St. James's Palace Stakes, losing by a length and a quarter to George Washington. With that effort, he would have won the QE2 in most years, most non-George Washington years. But he's a bit inconsistent. He's got John Velasquez, who knows his way around the Churchill Downs Mile. He's nice, but I just think he's going to be an underlay.
Of the Europeans, Alan, do you figure that someone in this group can win the Breeders' Cup Mile, and if so, who's got the best chance?
Well, on form, it's Arafa, but like I say, Sleeping Indian and even Echo of Light have their chances too. It's very difficult to say. If you say sure, Europeans are going to win, well, they got 7 out of 14 chances. Gorilla is going to give them a hard time. Aragorn is quite good, but again, I think Aragorn is going to be a bit of an underlay. It's a wide-open race, and I wouldn't be surprised to see an upset.
Alan Shuback's analysis of the Europeans in the Breeders' Cup Mile.